Rico, before we started, you were talking about how the different social media networks respond to cartoons. Some respond more immediately. Some allow you to be more risque. Do you find that as much as social media can explode on an issue, it can also sort of mitigate certain controversial cartoons?
I think it's an interesting, social media is sort of an interesting animal. I mean, I only follow Twitter and Facebook to varying degrees when I have time, but I do notice that certain issues, Facebook and Twitter have two completely different tolerances to sensitivities. Certain sort of slightly more risque human thing Twitter has a higher tolerance for, but should an issue get focused, the witch burners come out, literally the pitchforks come out much more aggressively on Twitter than on Facebook. Facebook has got a different pace. People stay up longer. People often, well, sometimes think more about responses. I mean, it's still the soundbite. I mean, to have I don't know if anybody here has ever tried having a proper rational discussion on social media. It deteriorates rather quickly. It's the kind of thing that people who would tear each other to pieces on social media, if they sat across each other with a couple of beers, they'd sort that out in 15 minutes. It's a really bizarre environment. And the fact that the non-accountability, that the interesting thing is that you're sitting anonymously, it doesn't matter who you are, you even can pretend to be somebody else, you can pretend to be the state president, you can pretend to be Donald Trump and put stuff out. Yet people who are actual real people in the media are held accountable. Yeah. So it's people who are not accountable holding people accountable. So it's an interesting dynamic. But what I was talking also, cartoons are essentially a communication medium. You're telling a story. Mm-hmm. And if you're using a mechanism, if you're using, let's say, a racist image or something, then immediately that point of what you're doing is missed because the discussion then becomes about something completely peripheral. And what also gets hijacked for all kinds of other motives, political motives. But, I mean, that's the argument often where of all sides, people will pull out, any kinds of, anti-white, race card, all that kind of stuff, just because they're losing an argument, or they don't have the space or the energy to have a proper discussion.
Yeah.
So when you give people the ammunition, because I mean, freedom of expression, my principle is, yes, you're allowed to, you should have permission to, within boundaries of, let's say, hate speech, to say anything you want, but often as a professional cartoonist or editorial cartoonist or as a journalist, you don't want to do that, because you're trying to get a message across. If you're writing a story or a cartoon and they see it, or by the first introduction, everybody's so outraged, and they haven't even read your column because you said something stupid or offensive, then you failed, in a sense. In the aspect of telling the story and getting a point across, you failed.
Yeah. Do you find that there's an opportunity for, if somebody misreads a cartoon and there is this response that you speak of, is there an opportunity to pull that back on social media? Yeah.
Not really.
To me, it's interesting. I'm always curious for someone to misread the cartoon more than what I wanted to say, because that thing, it extends what I actually wanted to say. So if someone misread it or bring in a different meaning to a cartoon, it's interesting to me, because that way I have, I provoke them to do something, in his mind, to tell me what he feels about a cartoon. So to me, that's very interesting. I always count on that, for someone to misread it and then talk to me back and say, it's okay, no, this is what I think. But the thing is, the problem that I have with cartoons, people always read the cartoons as an illustration. It's not an illustration. An illustration is just drawing people sitting as you are sitting, or people walking or waking. A cartoon is an opinion. It's editorialized. It has a meaning. But if someone misread that, to me it's very important, because I can see, it's okay, this is where he's going, and maybe I'll use that later to counter that. So to me, it's very interesting. I count on that to misread it, so I can try maybe correct them, or maybe they can correct me on the other end.
Brandan, do you think there are opportunists that will misread a cartoon for the sake of misreading it? People
Yeah, there's a whole new dynamic with social media where, I guess in a way people are professionally kind of looking out for such things to get outraged about and to foment some sort of a reaction, spontaneous reaction from all kinds of people. I think, as you alluded to, I mean, that's clearly what's going on. There are people who do that. But, I think that there's, it's one of those things. There's a lot of opportunity, but there's also so much opportunity for things to be misdirected and misinterpreted on a huge scale. And that's the one issue with social media. I mean, you never know how something's going to be perceived. And then back to what Yalo was saying with the cartoon. I mean, I try really to almost put myself in the shoes of the audience when I'm creating a cartoon, to try and understand what, or to look for those sort of pitfalls where you may have miscommunicated, or where something could be perceived differently to what you intended. But you never can completely kind of take that off the table. There's always an element of that's something you just never foresaw, that somebody could see it that way. And there's always that little gap of understanding in a cartoon. I don't think you can completely kind of cover all your bases to make sure. So I think when I send my cartoon, at the end of the day, there's always an element of just going out on a limb to see how it will go, because you really, even if you do get feedback that's positive or negative, or somebody perceives it differently, sometimes you may never know, and people may not have bothered to tell you. So you never really understand that completely. So it's something that's kind of out there. It's the audience response to it is completely. It's really something you can't control or really, I suppose, prepare for. You just have no idea how it's going to be perceived. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
The other thing that I've, as a feedback I've gotten, what a lot of readers don't really understand is, as with any other contributor to a publication, be it digital or print, as a cartoonist, it's a collaborative effort. Essentially, it is you and an editor working together. You come up with the ideas, and if there's a final decision that an editor makes of any publication, takes responsibility and says, yes, this is what I want in my publication. You don't have, carte blanche in a sense. Well, maybe Zapiro does that, but we don't really in a sense. And it's often, if you have your own ideas, and it works in any creative field, if you have your own ideas, you're too close to them, and somebody can step back and say, no, this can be misunderstood, this is not the right tone, or you're getting the facts wrong. That can also happen in a sense. So what was quite interesting with the monkey cartoon is with Zapiro's monkey cartoon, it seemed to be Zapiro standing up, defending himself. And I was always curious where the editors were of this, where the editorial, because there should be, whatever, even as a journalist, whatever you write something, or even as an author, there's a publisher or an editor standing next to you who's made that decision together with you to put this out into the public. And they must stand together with you to defend you on that issue.
Yeah.
So I always found that a little curious.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Speaking about editors, how have you guys found, as social media has started to, the social media audience has started to dictate the way we think about creating our cartoons, how have you found working with your editors? Have you found that the editors have wanted to be a little bit more hands-on? Are they a little bit more prescriptive?
Well, the way I've picked up, I've worked with, a dozen editors in the past 10 years. They change. They're in and out all the time. But one thing that I always make sure is that my voice or my artwork is mine, and it's viewed from me, not from the editor. So the way I deal with editors, I know they're gatekeepers, so I talk to them amicably, and I give them my idea. And if once in a while they have a good idea or maybe a suggestion, I take that in or consider it. Other than that, they're just going to be, typo guarders. They're just going to guard my grammar, my terrible grammar and my spelling, whatnot. That's how I deal with them. But I want my voice to be there, my artwork to exist, to be from me. If someone has an issue with a cartoon, not to call the paper or the editor, or the executives, just deal with me, because it's my opinion.
It's got your name on it.
Yeah, and it's very important. My name is the biggest one there, and then after that it's Sowetan or other publication. So it's on me. I want it to be my voice. I hate being told what to do because I feel like I go to work and I'm not doing anything. I have to wait for an editor to tell me what to draw.
Yeah.
And truth be told, these guys, they can't draw. They don't know what drawing is. They know what they like, or what they like to see, or what makes them laugh. But they don't know the process
Yeah.
of drawing a cartoon.
Yeah.
For a cartoon to be like really specific and enjoyable, you need to take it seriously as a cartoonist. So the audience doesn't have to. They can just be happy and enjoy the cartoon. So that's what I do. I take the cartoon as serious as I can so that whoever is viewing it can enjoy it. And that thing, I stamp it to my editors that I want, this is my work. I've been here way longer than you. These guys, they come, these guys, they come and they spend, I don't know, 3 years and then they're changed. I've been doing this for the past decade.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. So that's how I deal with them specifically.
Brandan, you work with a number of editors. How do you do it?
Yeah, yeah, my editors have been, I've gone through the whole gamut. I've been working professionally, I think, since my first cartoon I ever got published was in 1994, and then, things started slowly from there. But just going back to sort of editors sort of trying to influence what you're doing, I found it to be it was a much bigger problem when I started, when back in my early days when I suppose I didn't, I wasn't as good at it really as I am now. I found a bit more editorial involvement in my work then. People sort of suggesting things, or sometimes just not publishing it because they pretty much didn't like it or didn't agree with what I was trying to say. But I think now I've also I take a great deal of pride in the actual idea behind my work. I think almost more than the drawing itself sometimes, because that's the whole point. So like Sifiso, getting an idea for me would be just not actually taking a day off, because the real work for me is coming up with the idea and sitting there, threshing out the possibilities and working out something new and an original way of looking at things. And once I get that, then the drawing goes through. But back to the editors, they really only see the cartoon I do when I send it to them. They don't have any involvement before or during the process, because I simply don't know what I'm going to end up with. So it really doesn't work for me to give them a list of ideas, because my ideas kind of evolve and they happen. I might start drawing something that I feel really strongly about and very clear about, but then it ends up being something completely different as I go through the process of drawing it and trying to see how it will work. And so I don't engage with any editors before I actually complete the cartoon. And then at that point, it's usually just a few minutes to publication time, and it just goes in the newspaper.
Send it as late as possible.
So that's my plan. But really, I believe I've put enough effort into making sure the cartoon is read well, is not misinterpreted. There are no kind of I work really hard at that, and I think that's part of the job.
South African cartooning has often been jealously regarded by other countries as right out there in terms of the freedoms that we have and that we assume. Do you guys feel that these freedoms are in any way threatened? Do you feel that what with censorship sweeping the country through our now state broadcaster and newspapers, a lot of newspapers falling into line, do you think that the editorial cartooning space is under threat?
John, I'll tell you one thing. Don't get me started on freedom of expression. It's very weird. It's a blank check, basically. You're going to be told that, okay, there's a freedom of expression, you can express yourself. But one thing they don't tell you, sure, it's a blank check, but if you turn it over, there are terms and conditions.
Right.
That you have to be responsible for. It's not that simple. You draw something, the mere fact that you can't just draw and like have fun and get your point across. You need to think, okay, if someone is reading this, whether they are eligible or not, how is this thing going to affect them? If I draw someone is sitting on a toilet or something, how is that going to be read? Sleeping on a banana, how is that going to be read? You are responsible for it. Like in my case, I've made it okay, when I do cartoons, maybe self-censorship or whatnot, or because of the publication I'm working for, I've made my case that, okay, that I can't, that I will not draw naked people per se, because it's a family newspaper. And nothing grinds me because of, why can't I draw naked people? There's lots of metaphors and puns that I can use with naked people, but I find myself that I can't do that. I can't draw naked people because of these terms and conditions. Sure, there's freedom. I've got lots of cartoons, awesome cartoons, that have never been seen, that I can't even put up on Facebook because they'll be regarded as racist, or I don't know, as porn per se, that I can't send out there. So this freedom of expression is limited, very limited. And if you do transgress or go across, you need to be responsible for it. So that affects one's work as a cartoonist.
Right, but now what I was talking about is just the trend towards censorship at the SABC and threats of a media tribunal, and I mean all those threats seem to have waned at the moment, but they're overhanging.
Yeah.
Do you feel that South African editorial cartooning and journalism as a whole has something to concern itself about?
Not particularly. I've done few works for the SABC. They've interviewed me and they've, trust me, they've over-edited whatever I say or draw that can appear on their TV. And to me, I mean, it hurts me because they'll sit with me and I'll talk, and then some of the stuff would be blipped out or cut out or over-edited. So I don't deal with SABC, basically, because it's a mouthpiece of the ANC and everybody knows that.
Rico, what do you think
I think,
about it?
I mean, we basically, it's something to be aware of, and, defending press freedom, defending it is obviously very important. But we are a long way of, Cloudy being like the Joseph Goebbels of South Africa, running, controlling all the press to toe a pipeline. I mean, that's not. And I think across the board, the sort of journalists, if institutions of larger corporate institutions, as soon as they censor and take a space away, somebody else on the other end will take up. And in the realm of social media, on the digital age, censorship in a way, unless you turn your country into a North Korea, that horse is bolted. Yeah. And with technology, even if you have a large part of the, I mean, that's what the ANC is counting on, in the sense that there's a large part of our society who are too poor to access alternative knowledges and news sources. Yeah. But within 5 years, you'll be running everything off the cheapest cell phone. Will be doing what a smartphone is doing now. Yeah. So that horse is bolted in a sense. Yeah. Like I said, unless you turn yourself into a full-blown
it's futile. It's futile what Saudi is doing. That's what I'm saying. You're gonna say is, okay, I can show what's happening in Pretoria, people burning 1,000 buses and municipal cars, but within seconds you can pick that up on your phone. It's there. Yeah. So what are you trying to protect?
And the issue is that it's still, the sort of top end of the pyramid of technology and stuff is still a relative minority, a middle class minority and thing. But that, with technology getting cheaper and the access to things, that part of the pyramid is gonna seep to the bottom at speed. And unless, like I said, unless they turn us into a North Korea, there's no way of stopping that.
It doesn't make sense.
And the other aspect is that our press and our journalistic, except for, let's say, maybe the New Age and places like that, we are going to put up the fight they're going to put such a fight. And you have to get it passed through the Constitution and looking I don't think at this rate the ruling party will never regain, or are very unlikely to regain any majority that's strong enough to change the constitution.
Yeah.
So
You think we're
it,
safe?
it could be. No, it's not. It's never safe.
Yeah.
It's never safe. Even in a run-up to democracy, I'll show you an example. Is when 9/11 happened, and then the Gulf War after that, and suddenly big corporate media in America towed the patriotic line.
Yeah.
And because of corporate interests, commercial interests, that everybody has to seem to be patriotic. So if the New York Times doesn't support going into Iraq, then Ford will pull the advertising because they don't want to seem unpatriotic. So that
Right.
kind of stuff, it's never
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah.
It is never. But we are in an environment where the alternatives are always available. Nobody can control information like they used to be able
Yeah.
to do in, let's say, Hitler's Germany, for instance, or communist Soviet Union.
And that's largely an illusion. I mean, as you both were saying, I mean, that's there's just no way you can do that. So essentially, it's taking the SABC and saying, well, we won't, we're not going to have dirty hands, but that's pointless because there's things happening around us that need to be seen, and people will see anyway. So it really just a poor excuse for not really doing their job as making as newscasters, as news broadcasters seriously. I mean, that's really what they're doing.
So, Brandan, you've been drawing cartoons for what, 22, 23 years, about that length of time. How have you felt that the freedom of expression is now compared to where it was at the dawn of democracy in South Africa? You think?
I think it's a lot healthier now. I think at the early part of the early 90s, during the Mandela years, there was almost a kind of a walking on eggs sort of feeling because everything was good. Everything had we had such amazing things that happened here in terms of our shared democracy, the constitution, all those things, and of course Mandela's years. And at that time, it seemed, I mean, he didn't mind criticism at the time. I mean, we did some critical cartoons of some of the decisions he took during his term in office, and but still, it seemed very new, and we were wrestling with our role, as it were. And especially me. I mean, I was really struggling to find a way to and finding things to say. It was actually far easier to. My default was looking outside of South Africa and looking overseas, what was happening in other parts of the world, because our politics was pretty fragile. And I think it's toughened up a lot. I mean, we've been through the Thabo Mbeki years, and I think it's really robust and really strong. I mean, people say what they want to say in the media. People have that space. I think it was a lot. There was a kind of a feigned respectfulness at the early part of our democracy, a kind of okay, let's just go easy on things and see how it goes. Let's give things a chance. But ultimately, people want to know what's going on. People want the media to demystify things and to cut through a lot of the cloud and the mist that the government puts out there. And yeah, people are doing their jobs.
There's always as a political cartoonist, you have this split personality, this conflict. I'm saying that. I mean, I was sort of quipping, when I said that political cartoonists raid politicians by how much fun they're going to be to draw and to make fun of, not how good they're going to be at their job. So you kind of have this thing. Julius Malema as president, from political cartoon point of view, yes. From the country, no, not so good. It's like Americans now going, all the political cartoonists are going, Trump. They want him in.
All the cartoonists, they want Trump.
Yes, but that's probably going to be a disaster for the country if you did,
Yeah.
So that's always which makes sort of life interesting in a way that if we turn into like Denmark or Sweden, it'd be good for everybody, but it'd be hell of a boring for us.
Yeah, true.
So, just to kind of start wrapping things up a little bit, would I be right in saying that the consensus of today's panel discussion has been that editorial cartooning is in a good space, social media has brought a lot of challenges, but it's also kind of kept us on our toes. We're needing to find ways of navigating sensitivities, some criticism, some fair, some not. But it's just keeping us innovative in finding ways to get around those challenges. And what Rico was saying is social media has also brought a platform which will counter any kind of censorship that the state would want to impose on the media and cartoonists in particular. Social media is overriding that by allowing us to get the message across. Would there be anything that you guys would add to?
Well, I think it's where it is shaky is newspapers, media, and news in general. We're in this transition phase. I mean, Western Europe and America especially are way ahead of us in this, where newspapers closing down left, right, and center, and somehow the digital space not filling up the gap. So where the danger is, and that's in all media in a sense, is the dumbing down of media, television has kind of sort of gone against that trend to some degree. At one stage you'd think every single Jerry Springer shows would be wall to wall, but then television has kind of made good series, actually take the gap that movies used to. Now movies, you produce a lot of rubbish most of the time. So we are lagging behind, let's say, the Western media in that respect. So we have more time to figure that out. But there is a problem where, with the commercial sense of it, because in a weird, in some way, the readership and the advertisers and the thing have to pay for us doing this professionally. Exactly. So and that's still where things are a little wobbly. Where news organizations, for instance, the where I draw for digital space, ENCA, and you work on Eyewitness News, for instance, they're creating opening new spaces, but somehow that space from a business point of view isn't quite having as much legs as the print media used to have.
Traditional media.
So it's like you have a dying print media, and it is dying in a sense.
Slowly.
But somehow you have a decreasing on this side, and then the digital space and advertising on this side isn't keeping up with the shrink on that side, and that could be and that affects everybody. That affects where, for instance, now with the unrest in Pretoria and Tshwane up there, that a lot of the news came through the social media, and a lot of the news channels were really slow in picking it up because they just don't have the resources because they're economically squeezed. Suddenly you've got to find a camera crew to dash out there.
It's a timing thing, Rico. To me, one thing that I battle with is timing. I'll do a cartoon and package it and say to myself that it will be ready for Monday. But then when I read around and all the news feeds, I feel like it's ready now. It should be there.
Yes.
But it's for Monday. I'm like, the social media is like, it's like another editor on my head, grinding me down. It's okay, this thing is there now. If you don't publish now, you're going to miss the golden opportunity. It's all the timing to me.
Rico and I were talking about that just before this panel discussion, and we're talking about Rico draws for ENCA, and I work for Eyewitness News, and they're interested in cartoons about the trending subject. And they don't want to know what was trending this morning, they want to know what's trending right now.
Yeah.
So it puts pressure on us. But the downside of that, and where the print media, you guys are both, yourself and Brandan are both mainly print media, where you guys are lucky is you're afforded the opportunity, if a good story comes and goes, you can still go back to it. Because your media is a little bit more slow, and you can go back to it.
And the other thing is an opinion, so it's a comment. It's not like you're reporting.
Yeah.
So you're relating, but it has to be something that is trending at that point.
Yeah.
I find it difficult though talking about trying to come up with cartoons about trending subjects happening now is that there's not enough time to really analyze what's going on, and I think cartoons really thrive on good analysis and really try and giving a situation time to, I suppose, settle down to understand what has really happened. And so sometimes I feel, that print is really the place to be because there's a great deal of reflection that has gone into it because a cartoon is not instant. I mean, you don't put a cartoon out in a minute or two. You need a great deal of time. And and of course the inspiration. You need to understand what you're doing, what you're trying to say, and yeah, the sort of happening now, hot trending thing just isn't one of those issues that you can just take and do a cartoon.
Yeah, and they don't understand, the editors,
Yeah.
that a cartoon is not a stamp. You don't stamp this thing. It's an artwork. You sit down.
No, but you have
sketch.
Photoshop, it draws itself.
Trust me, even if it draws itself, you need to sketch it out and feed the
beast,
illustrator.
yeah.
You don't have that upgrade to Photoshop, the one that sketches itself?
Oh, okay, trust me.
I
As
speak to
we-
the staff. To the
We're
Sowetan.
running out of time, and I'd like to just invite a few questions from the audience.
Yeah, if
what
they,
Is there anything that anyone wants to say before I do?
But
Ben?
just quickly, just talking about the growth of industry. When I started in trying to find a cartooning gig in 1994, there were virtually no cartoonists in any newspaper in this country. I mean, Zapiro was just starting to become published, and most of the newspapers had kind of evolved.
Zapiro
to,
took them all out.
yeah, the newspapers just kind of were moving along without cartoonists because there weren't, there apparently weren't any. And since Zapiro's come through, I mean, I've got opportunities in many things. I mean, most newspapers in the last sort of up to about 2 or 3 years ago had a cartoonist or a newer cartoonist on their editorial page, which was great. I mean, we're talking about 16 or maybe 10 or more cartoonists actually working in the print media.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to see, like in the Cape Argus in Cape Town, there's absolutely nothing on the editorial page. There's no cartoon.
weird. It's
So
pictures.
it's quite a sad trend that it's kind of going back to where we were sort of 20 years ago. And it's been such a great 20 years of new people coming in, new exciting talent, getting the space to do this craft. I mean, we got to watch that.
I don't
Yeah.
think I'd be a cartoonist if it was not for Rico and Zapiro or Dr. Jack. I don't think I would be.
Yeah, no, same here. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if there are any questions from the audience. Please.
Hi, my name is Mark Oppenheimer. My question is for the panel. Is there a concern that in the current space that it's become more difficult to express controversial ideas and that the sanction will not only come from the state but also from those that are angry on social media? So if you look at Sapiro's journey with his recent cartoon, he initially defends it but later backs down because of the normal social pressure to do so.
Can
Anyone-
I answer that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Mark, there is a lot of added pressure when you have to do a cartoon. I've recently done a cartoon on drugs, and I've picked up on all these Western franchises. And I took their logos basically and turned them upside down, dealing with drugs. Like I would say, the Weed King, or I don't know, Take, or I don't know, all those, just to play with their logos. But my editor couldn't publish that. And right now I'm battling with trying to, do I put it in there on the Facebook or I don't? It's a wonderful cartoon, and I wish you could see it. So there is that issue.
Is
Yeah.
that one of people buying drugs from the spaza shops?
You haven't seen
No,
it.
haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it.
I mean, there is
So
a
there is that added pressure,
Yeah.
brother. There is.
Yeah, there is a constant shift, and I think I was making the point earlier, we still have the ability to just about say anything. We might just have to tailor the method we do it with. I mean, the freedom of speech in saying the opinion I can state, unless it's straightforward racism, hate speech, the sort of sparrow kind of thing, besides that, I can still basically, I think, still have the freedom as long as it's fair, what I would call fair comment. I mean, I can take a cheap shot and have stuff that's basically libelous or something, they obviously stay away from that, but in a sense, and you also must consider that you are in a space that is a publication. If you want to say anything you want, then you create your own website, your own news thing, and you go out there and take your
you can
chances.
Yeah,
do
it's
that
part of something.
on your own volition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you just find new ways of doing it. You kind of try and get one step ahead of what
Sorry,
people are trying to do. Yeah.
Apologies to the other questionnaires. We've run out of time. Just to let you know that later today at 3:30, Moray is going to be speaking about the state of comics in South Africa on the stage. And Rico will be talking tomorrow. Rico, you'll be doing a live strip show, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's something to look forward to, 11 o'clock tomorrow. Thank you very much for attending, and thanks very much to our panel.
Hi, I'm Les Allen from GeekXP. If you liked this video, please be so kind as to like the video itself down below. And if you want to get updates on more of these types of videos from the GeekXP channel, please hit subscribe. Thanks very much, guys.